Dawson's Rambles.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here, continuing my series of videos again where we look at the different eras of PR. This time we're in the middle. We are doing the worst things about the Saban Entertainment era, the original Recipe Power Rangers era. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we, with number 5, which is a bit of a weird one, maybe, but I'm gonna say the actor treatment. And I really can't speak to everything, but I feel like a lot of us in general have noticed ever since PR actors have started appearing at cons more, you know, starting with Morphicon and onwards, now they're like everywhere. We kind of found out that Saban just really wasn't the best at the way they treated their actors. I mean, you kind of hear almost horror stories about some of the ways that they were treated, like in the movie and stuff. And that kind of continued even to the Neo-Saban era. It's just kind of unfortunate, especially since many of us grew up with it as our childhood, and we have these sort of, it's not like a, they ruined my childhood thing, but it does kind of suck to learn that like something you held so much had this sort of darker side to it where things just weren't as joyous as it seemed. And it's just kind of a general crappy practice to, you know, treat people that way. And I just found that to be kind of something I've heard more so about the Saban era than any other one, so I felt like including it on this list, even though it's kind of a weird thing to call out, maybe. Number 4 is the transition between Zeo and Turbo. This is such a pinpoint specific thing, but I think this was so ill-handled, and I talked about in the best video how it was kind of neat that they had the confidence to make a movie the transition point between the series, even if they did a clip show later. But it's unfortunate how poorly this was handled. I mean, not just because it was handled poorly, but because they actually had done a pretty solid job of setting up the previous 2 seasons. I mean, this wasn't so much a transition between seasons 2 and 3, but I thought Ninja Quest was a really great entry into the season 3 dynamic of the new Zords. And then I thought the transition between mmpr and Zeo was really well handled, both in the show and the marketing. I mean, we all remember the, you gotta see it, it's coming! We all remember those ads. Like, that was super hype, that was super exciting, super mysterious. It really felt like we were ushering into a new era. And then within the show itself, we had this whole storyline that was foreshadowed quite a ways before as well that led into it. And there was all kinds of neat little bits of foreshadowing into it. Like, I remember, I think it was Tommy's sequence when he went to the past, where there was a little drawing of the Zeo Ranger 5 helmet on like a rock or something like that. Like, it was really well done. Like, even going back and revisiting it every now and then, I'm still impressed based on what you would expect from something like Power Rangers, how well done the transition was. So it's really unfortunate that then Zeo from Turbo felt so awkward, and then to be immediately followed after something like Turbo in Space, which in my opinion also had a great transition, and makes this really awkward stepchild that's made even more awkward by the fact that they had a theatrical release behind it. Number 3, the acting. Like, this is kind of a mean one in a way, but I feel like a lot of the acting wasn't the best, especially in the early years, because there could be this whole argument had where they kind of, you know, they were doing non-union stuff, but they're also prioritizing people that knew martial arts. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this might be different from everybody else. I like the civilian fight scenes, don't get me wrong, though it is kind of impractical. Like, imagine Thanos lands and Iron Man's like, you know what, I could put on my suit, but I'm gonna fight him as a civilian for a few minutes first. Like, why? Just morph. But, you know, I like watching those fight scenes. But for me, the acting's a little bit more important because the character and the character development's more important. So the acting and performances, I think, was definitely a weak spot. More so at the beginning before they kind of grew into their roles in MMPR, but it was definitely something that was peppered throughout. I feel like Pepper being in there is like a weird Iron Man thing after I just talked about Iron Man, but I'm just getting distracted now. It wasn't even really Pepper in there. I was just saying the word Pepper. I'm distracted again, I'm so sorry. Number 2 is, to a degree, the early writing / non-relatable characters. In the top best video, I did talk about how I think that Saban Entertainment did a pretty solid job of gradually evolving the show and sort of aging up certain things, you know, to grow with their audience, which I do think they did a good job at. But I think in the early era, there was this really wooden, too cheesy, non-relatable way they wrote their characters. And obviously there's a degree of cheese in all of PR that people love. But I'm just kind of talking about making them too much of goody two-shoes, and there's kind of, you know, an argument to be had for both sides, because I've seen people say, you know, they wanted to make them the ideal for, you know, kids to aspire to be like that. And I totally get that. But I was a different type of kids. Like, I was multiple kids. This is a big revelation, guys. I don't know if I can handle this. I was a different type of kid where whenever something was obviously being too heavy-handed, you know, and trying to preach to me, it bothered me. Like, it made me not want to do that. Like, I was, you know, I'm so used to being the bad boy. Like, I get more inspired both when I was younger and now by something that feels like it's coming from a genuine place and not like it's coming from a disingenuous Hallmark card saying. And I think even back when I was little, I had a hard time with the mmpr Rangers dialogue and everything about them feeling too perfect and too preachy. I feel it made them really unrelatable and out of reach, and I think they could have stood to have some more flaws. And again, it's going to be different from everybody. Like, there's probably people that were totally inspired by these kids that did 10 charity projects while being a ranger and doing homework. But for me, I found it unrelatable. And I feel like there's got to at least be one other person out there that kind of feels the same way. And I just feel that in general, especially in the original Zordon era, there was a lot of clunky writing and dialogue. I mean, the Power Rangers writing has never ever had like a point where it's been absolutely masterful for a whole series. It's definitely gotten better, but I think that era had some of the most clunkiest moments. Well, Neo Saban, I guess, had more too, I would give it that. But it definitely had some clunky moments. Number one, maybe kind of a weird one, but a failure to create another season or seasons that were as iconic as MMPR. Now, I don't even necessarily think it's possible for them to have created one that would be as iconic as MMPR, but I think with the way MMPR became such an icon, and I think the Saban Entertainment era in general was when PR was kind of at its peak popularity, and so I think that would have been the golden years to attempt to showcase that PR could be more than MMPR, because unfortunately now, because of the decisions made back then, we are stuck in this sort of limbo where we have a hard time gaining new fans or even people to not laugh at us for liking it because all they think of is MMPR. And it's like this weird mindset where at the same time you'll have someone being like, MMPR nothing, MMPR was the best. And also, MMPR was cheesy trash, no way PR could be good. And the fact that MMPR, Season 1 in particular, is the only thing most people think of, and that they really never were able to create an era that was as popular to sort of set it up for other iterations to be successful is kind of an unfortunate thing that I think the Saban Entertainment era sort of cemented, that being the only thing people think of, and it makes it really hard for people to break out of it. I've brought up other franchises before in terms of an example, like how, you know, you have like G1 Transformers or like the original 80s TMNT cartoon, which have a similar level of iconic nostalgia, but there's also other eras in those franchises that are popular, and that is definitely a little bit of a difference because when it comes to franchises like that, they're still the same characters, just different versions. But I think you know what I'm getting at, where there is multiple eras in other franchises that maybe not reaching the iconic heights of the Nothing Beats the Original, but they have enough of a fan base that they're recognizably popular eras. And I think the Saban Entertainment era would have been the perfect time to set up more little mini eras or seasons, at least one more, that would have been as recognizable to sort of get the ball rolling on that. And I'm not talking about within the fandom, because there's certain seasons such as like Time Force or SPD, which I feel are kind of iconic within the fandom in terms of being memorable. But I'm talking about broader strokes throughout, you know, Gen Pop. We're not in prison. That was Neo Saban. We're done with that. That is about it for this one. That is my top 5 worst / least favorite things about the Saban Entertainment era. As per usual, I used usual again, I'm sorry. Let me know what yours is in the comments. We can have a fun discussion. I will be concluding this specific string of videos in my next videos, which will be a ranking of all the Saban Entertainment seasons. And also, just FYI, before anyone gets pre-mad, I am including Wild Force in that era because it's of that similar vibe. But anyway, until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications for all my videos. Till next time, Dawson Raider, signing out. Wait, Dawson Rider, not Dawson Raider. That's my brother from Earth 2. You know how it is!